the showdown on Saturday afternoon. And it will be a very fun weekend full of college football. 3 matchups between top 10 teams. Oh boy, we've never had a slate like that for week 1. Welcome into College Football Live. We've got the gang all here. It's a reunion of sorts, a family reunion. Desmond Howard, Stanford Steve, Pete Thamel, The Authority, and I am Jen Latta. Guys, before we get too deep into it, I just want to get your quick thoughts on what you are most excited for this season. Des?
Wow, where did we start? I mean, week 1, we came out swinging. You talked about the matchups that we have. Of course, the big one here, though, Texas versus Ohio State. Arch Manning, he's the starting quarterback at Texas now. Not the backup coming in spot duty in a couple of meaningless games. This is a big game. I can't wait to see how he performs tomorrow afternoon against this Buckeyes defense.
I just want to see how fan bases react because as we learned last year, you could have the worst possible loss on your schedule and resume and still win a national championship.
Very true. Yes,
so
sir.
there's room for hope. Don't overreact. There's plenty of season ahead of us.
All right, so let's get to the top stories, of course. For that, we go to the Authority, Pete Thamel. What should we be paying attention to week 1?
Well, in Clemson LSU, Jen, there is a key suspension for the first half. LSU starting safety A.J. Halsey will not play in the first half against Clemson. We'll get into it more later, but it's a spicy little controversy with the headline being LSU wasn't told until Wednesday that Halsey would be out for the first half. Some big quarterback news emerged last night, Jen. Sam Horn, who is the starter for Missouri, he was going to play the second half for Missouri. He was kind of a co-starter. They were obviously played Bo Preville in the first half. He got injured, and I was told today by a source that he's out indefinitely. As for Billy Edwards of Wisconsin, there's better news. He had that non-contact knee injury. You see him hobbling right there. The worst fears have been eliminated. I was told he got an MRI, and it came back negative. He is week to week. We'll see if he's back for Bama in week 3. And in this game here, there's a big update on Texas receiver Emmett Mosley. He is making the trip to Columbus, but he is expected to be limited, and he likely won't play significant snaps. Look for Parker Livingstone, a redshirt freshman with 0 career catches, to play a big role for the Longhorns. The theme of this whole season, Jen, is a lot of new faces and new places in key roles, and Parker Livingstone epitomizes that.
Yeah, Texas, one of those teams. Ohio State, one of those teams that has to fill a lot of spots, and we will get to see them on the field tomorrow afternoon. So this week's road test is brought to you by Goodyear. Number 1 Texas taking on number 3 Ohio State. Tomorrow will be the 5th meeting all time between these two programs. The last coming nearly 8 months ago in the semifinals. Each team has 2 wins in the series so far. So Des, we begin with you here. The Manning era, as you mentioned it is upon us. What are you expecting from that team tomorrow?
I tell you what, guys, everywhere I go, I have people asking me, is anybody else playing college football outside of Arch Manning? Like, you guys talk about him all the time. I mean, the hype is through the roof right now for this young man. I think the pressure is going to be on Steve Sarkisian, though. Steve Sarkisian is one of the best head coaches in the country, one of the best offensive minds in the country, too. Now he's going to be challenged going up against this Buckeyes defense with a young quarterback who's never been in an atmosphere like this before. I believe he doesn't have the weapons he had a year ago, but they load up. They still have some talent, maybe inexperienced, unproven talent, but guys they have confidence in. I want to see what the game plan is going to be. When I played, we had the first scripted plays, like probably 12 plays, and they were scripted. I want to see what is going to be his game plan to try to ease his young, very talented quarterback, who people are starting to talk about him for the Heisman, into this game.
Yeah, and I think if Texas is going to have success, they have to slow down the Ohio State offense.
Yeah.
And that starts with a defense. Both these teams have a lot of the similarities in what they have to replace. You know, guys on the defensive line, guys on the offensive line. So the Texas defense, 1 catch, 3 yards, Jeremiah Smith last year. Can they do that again with limited personnel in this building? That remains to be seen.
And Pete, what about the defense for Ohio State?
Well, Jen, if you think the only famous number 2 pencil that will factor in tomorrow will be that of our friend Coach Corso, I would tell you, not so fast, my friend, because Matt Patricia, the defensive coordinator for Ohio State, brings an entire new scheme, and how Texas adjusts to that, as Des said with Sark, is going to loom large over this game. He's going to bring a very different system than Jim Knowles ran. There's a lot of new faces there, but the returning faces are among the best faces in the country. When you talk about Sonny Styles, when you talk about Caleb Downs, the buzz at Ohio State practice this when I was over there yesterday, was about Arvell Reese, another linebacker who people think in this scheme with a little more freedom is going to put up big numbers. He's one of those big sort of downhill mauling linebackers we remember from the Parcells, Belichick-type defenses. So it'd be interesting to see if Arch uses his feet, if those guys can slow him down.
I'm glad he talked about the defense for the Buckeyes, because anytime you have a new coordinator, sometimes it just takes a while to get used to the lingo, the expectations, and just some sort of continuity defensively. I tell you what, if those guys, I mean, listen, they have Caleb Downs, right? Best safety in college football.
No doubt.
But if there's like one miscommunication, that ball's flying way over their head. So it's going to be really something interesting to watch how that secondary in the back end, how they approach this game tomorrow, because they have to stay on the same page at all times.
I think you could make the argument that Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs are not just the two best players in the Big Ten, they're two of the best players in the country, and obviously for the hometown Buckeyes. I heard it back there. That's right.
We got dozens of fans back here, dozens of them.
Let's get to LSU Clemson, another big matchup taking place this weekend. Tomorrow night, number 4 Clemson hosts number 9 LSU. That's at 7:30 Eastern on ABC. LSU has won 3 of 4 in the series history, but this will be the first regular season meeting between the two programs. The last one, 2020 CFP National Championship game. LSU beat Clemson 42-25. LSU has lost 5 straight openers since winning the national championship in 2019. Pete, you touched on it earlier. There are updates with this LSU team. What is the latest?
Sure. So A.J. Holsey's suspension, which you mentioned up at the top of the show, is a really, really compelling scenario. So I'm going to walk through the timeline of how this happened and why it surprised LSU. So November of last year, BYU plays Houston, where A.J. Halsey played last year, in a season-ending game that nobody watched or remembered. A.J. Halsey gets thrown out with about 2.5 minutes to go. It's initially ruled unsportsmanlike, which, Jen, would mean you just get thrown out of the game. It was ruled after the game by officials to be fighting, which causes the first half suspension. Wow. The Big 12 emailed Houston in December with the clarification and the suspension. Now, A.J. Halsey claims this was never communicated to him by the Houston staff. He transfers in May and doesn't know of this suspension that's supposed to travel with him. Well, it emerged this week, the call for some clarity. Hey, is A.J. Halsey eligible? And they went to the NCAA and they said, by the letter of the law, he has to be suspended and there's no appeal process. So there's a lot of Spider-Man gifting going around on whose fault this all is. And, yeah, let's just say there's going to be some spicy feelings on the LSU sideline about how this happened, both from the NCAA side and where it emerged from.
Never a dull moment in college football,
if I'm Coach Kelly, bro, I'm heated.
Yeah.
I'm heated. There's no excuse for that. He should have known this. I tell you what, I've been doing my research on LSU and their defense, and AJ is a guy who they got out the portal, and they probably got about 3 or 4 more defensive backs out of the portal, too. This defense, they're going to be tested in that secondary, so that's huge news coming from Pete, because they're going to need all the help they can get in the secondary. You're looking at this Clemson offense, man, who going to throw the ball around the yard, and the LSU defense that last year, they wanted to be aggressive, but they did not have the personnel to act it out. Now they went in the portal, got guys like AJ. I can't wait to see this matchup tomorrow, Steve.
It's a tough matchup for LSU going on the road, because I believe Clemson has everything you want in a title contender. Yeah. In this day and age of the transfer portal, they have the most returning production in the country.
80%.
And that defensive line is real. You look at every mock draft, they already have the defense, Parker and Woods in the top 5 of NFL drafts. So for this LSU team, you mentioned the moves they made defensively, Des. Yeah. They got to replace 4 stars on the offensive line. Going into that Death Valley is a tough chore. I expect big things from Clemson.
Well, I really think it's funny how the narrative on Dabo has changed. It was he's not going to the portal, he's falling behind for years and years. And now it's, oh, wait, they have all this continuity, and now Dabo's a genius for keeping everybody together, letting guys grow up in the system. The one place, Steve, I think there's some questions for Clemson is at tailback. They're going to play Adam Randall, who's a converted wide receiver. Dabo has a proclivity to not play young players right away. So it'll be an interesting test with Gideon Davidson. He's one of the top running back recruits in the country. How early will they go to him Saturday if they're not getting production from that tailback position?
Yeah, we have to see if it's going to work out, right? It's one thing for all the, analysts and everyone else on TV talking about how this is going to be Clemson's year, but they still got to go out there and win these games. So, yeah, don't put the carriage in front of the horse too fast.
And Clemson went 0-3 against SEC opponents last season. I do love the addition of Tom Allen, though. I think him and Dabo are like 2 peas in a pod, and I think that will be a very good fit for the Clemson Tigers. Another top 10 show. Notre Dame and Miami are meeting with both ranked in the top 10 AP poll. Notre Dame has lost 6 straight road games at Miami. I don't know, maybe it's the climate, Des. You're going to have to weigh in on that one for us. But this will be Miami's first time hosting a ranked team in their home opener since 2011. Pete, we'll start with you on this one. What are you watching for in this matchup?
So forget all the Heisman history in this matchup. Forget all the great skill players. I'm going right to the trenches. The offensive lines are where this game is going to be won, and both Notre Dame and Miami have high-end units. Miami has Francis Maui-Noah. He's one of the best tackle prospects in the country, and what Notre Dame has done from Brian Kelly to Marcus Freeman is consistently produce lines that forge the identity of that team. I don't feel like this Notre Dame line yet, and Steve could disagree with me, he studies line play more than me, has a thumper, definite first-round pick. Remember, in Brian Kelly's era there, every left tackle was picked in the first round of the top 16 until 2021. So it was a literal left tackle factory for a while. We'll see if Anthony Knapp can become that guy, and we'll see how this Notre Dame line gels. They lost some veteran guys to the portal. You know, when your backups are going to start elsewhere, you have really good depth there. But I think the trenches and who forms the identity there is where the tone for this game is set.
Des, your X factor for the Irish?
I tell you what, I like the fact that Pete talked about the trenches. I think the battle in the trenches is going to be very important, especially when you're looking at Notre Dame. They're starting C.J. Carr. This will be his biggest start, first start on the road at Hard Rock Stadium, and Miami is going to be ready for him. So what do you do when you start a young quarterback? You rely heavily, very, very heavily on your running game. Jeremiah Love is one of the most electric running backs in all of college football. Over 1,100 yards on the ground, 17 touchdowns last season. Look at him just leaping over guys, average 7 yards per carry. So, you know, they're going to lean on Jeremiah Love very, very heavy going into this game against the Canes, and why not? He's one of the best running backs in the country. I look at this guy as to me, in the lead right now as far as going to the season for the Doak Walker Award. He's the favorite.
I'm with you.
Feel free to confirm or negate what this guy said over here about the offensive line play, but what is the X factor?
I agree with him.
Perfect. What is the X factor for the Hurricanes?
I don't know who's catching the ball.
Good point.
When you between the NFL draft and the transfer portal, they lost their top 6 pass catchers. So Carson Beck comes in a new situation. Carson Beck and Miami are also the only team in the top 10 that has plugging in and playing a starting quarterback. Every other quarterback in the top 10 has been on campus for a whole year. So who is catching the ball for Miami against, which was the #1 pass defense last year? Yeah. It might be a defense that I think is deeper this year.
I tell you what, Miami, I've been to a couple of their practices, and Carson Beck, he's looking pretty good. They kind of limit his throws. He's not going to pitch count, but he looks pretty good. But they do have a lot of confidence in their wideouts. These guys are making plays in practice. I want to see if they can keep it up and do it against the Notre Dame secondary when it really counts. But those guys, they've been making some catches, bro.
You're getting man coverage against Notre Dame too,
and that's what you want as a wide receiver.
Just make plays.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. So,
but to your point, you mentioned the pass rush. This is a very deep unit for Notre Dame.
Yes.
Do not sleep on them. They've got 6 guys that they rotate. Could be the deepest unit there in the country, and they're going to be getting after Carson Beck.
That's
you
right.
can guarantee it. Steve, lots more teams kicking off their season this weekend. Give us your Week 1 gambling guide.
We're actually going to go big picture, Jen, and just give you some futures for the people.
All right, lock it in.
I want to go to the Big 12. I am expecting monster things out of Salt Lake City and the University of Utah this year. They bring in a new quarterback in Devin Dampier, along with his offensive coordinator, but they might have the best offensive line. Utah's been down the last couple of years due to bad quarterback play, and we knew the injury history with Cam Rising. So I like Utah at that price of plus 600 to win the Big 12 championship. Love the schedule, love the personnel. Next one, the Pitt Panthers. Someone on the College Game Day desk picked this team to make the playoff. I'm not going that far. I'm just looking at the regular season wins of 6.5, and you're getting plus 120. As Coach Saban pointed out, one of his former quarterbacks, Eli Holstein, in charge of there. Desmond Reed's a playmaker at running back. I really like the Pitt Panthers this year to go over 6.5 wins. And then finally, I hate to say it, but I'm going to go Penn State to win the Big Ten at the price. That's the price. It's not about the personnel. They're not the favorite. Ohio State is the favorite right now, according to a bunch of books. But I look at Penn State. If not now, when?
It means buying into Drew Aller. Obviously, he's gotten the chance to grow every year. But he's got to time. Shut up or put up. Put up or shut up, as they say. Shut up or put up or shut up. You know what I mean. For Drew Aller and Penn State. All right, some quick picks for tonight's games. We begin with Auburn at Baylor. Steve, I'll start with you.
I'm going to go with the home team here. This is as exciting a game. We know Auburn has struggled.
Yeah.
Hugh Freeze has recruited well. They got a new quarterback in. I just look at Baylor as a formidable opponent. At home in Waco Friday, going to be steamy.
Yeah.
Sawyer Robertson is fantastic at quarterback. Give me the home team plus the points.
Well, you talked about the quarterback. I'm talking about Jackson Arnold for Auburn. I got to give him some type of credit. You know, he's a 5-star, didn't work out in Norman, change of scenery. Great receiving core at Auburn, too.
Yeah.
People aren't talking about those guys like Cam Coleman. They brought in Eric Singleton, Jr. So I think I'm going to go with the Auburn Tigers.
All right, other game, Colorado at Georgia Tech.
I'm going to go with Georgia Tech. Again, the third year in a row. I need to see Colorado before I want to make any predictions. The roster interchanging out. They obviously had a successful season with Shador, new quarterback, a lot of new faces there. Georgia Tech, I loved when we were there in Ireland last year. The game plan they had for a season opener, I expect them to be buttoned up in a tough environment. Give me Georgia Tech minus the point.
I agree with you. I'm going Georgia Tech. Just doesn't know what I'm going to get from, Colorado at this point. Lost too much with Travis Hunter and the Sanders brothers. And then you look at what Georgia Tech is doing. They were very impressive. They were like, what did they take them Georgia into 5 overtimes last year and still could have won that game. So I like what they're doing. I'm going